All right. Well, we told you a little earlier that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, probably the best-known member of Congress, including the Speaker of the House in the United States, has a new opponent. This time, it's a Democrat. Well, there have been several Republicans talking about running as well. One of them joins us now, former aide to New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, and the host of the This Is America podcast joins us on the right, Rich Valdes, an independent journalist with a legal degree. Walker Bregman sticks with us on the left. Gentlemen, good to see you. Rich, give us your take on this new Fernando Cabrera candidacy. Is this something AOC should be worried about?
Yeah, so several months ago, I'd heard a little bit of gossip through the grapevine that Councilman Cabrera was thinking of running, and what I heard was that this was coming from, it was a threat at the time, with pressure coming from Pelosi. Don't know how true that is, but that would be the threat that I'm more concerned about than the other challenger.
Walker, you don't seem to think he's got much of a shot because of his socially conservative views.
Well, it's not just his socially conservative views. It's kind of his everything. All of his views. I mean,
well, he's won repeatedly Democratic primaries in the Bronx.
Sure, but
the Bronx is not exactly a bastion of being moderate.
It's true, but New York is a machine.
He beat an incumbent.
He was the incumbent.
He beat an incumbent councilman to get elected.
Yeah, but a while ago. Now he's like
in 2009.
Now he's term limited out.
Right,
this is his last.
Exactly.
Yeah, but look,
the progressive wing of the Democratic Party keeps trying to run people against him, and they keep losing. So the guy is popular among Democratic primary voters.
I think that Congress is different than running for city council.
No doubt about it.
It's a national seat as opposed to a city seat. And when this guy's views are going to come out, his ties to anti-gay groups in Africa,
Ruben Diaz Sr. is about to go to Congress.
And you know what
I
was going to say? Ruben Diaz Sr. has been one of the most conservative Democrats in the Bronx for decades. And he continues to build a very strong constituency. The reality is, and I speak from experience, Hispanics tend to be very, very socially conservative. So I think that this has a real shot of winning. What's happening with AOC is she's capitalizing on a lot of younger millennial people that are implanted into the Bronx. But the people that are born and bred in the Bronx, especially Boricuas, Hispanics, Latinos like me, tend to be more Hispanic than you think.
I'll tell you what I don't think is a winning strategy. You're paid what you're paid because that's just how much you're worth.
Well, that's probably true.
Write our own ticket, right?
And that is quite literally what Fernando Cabrera said. Now, that is typically a Republican talking point. So if Cabrera did somehow win the primary, I want to know how you carve out a lane against him. Because he's got you on social issues, and he's right there with you on economic issues. How do you do it?
Well, the reality is the only interest I have is seeing AOC beat. This is somebody that, if he picks up steam, I'll pat him on the back. Well, the point is to stop progressivism.
My final question on AOC for both of you is...
Can I just respond to that quickly?
You don't want to stop progressivism?
No. The point is to stop people from being paid with the value of their work. The point is to stop people from being able to go see a doctor.
No, I think the point is get your own health care, make your own way, make your own job, create your own company.
And if you can't do it, you know what? You die. And we're cool with that, right? Well, that is what it is.
If we can't do it, there's charity, there's the church. It's not the government's job to be your daddy.
How well is that working out for you guys watching? I just want to...
The NEWSMAX audience knows what I'm talking about.
All right, well, let me ask you both. Honestly, like with everything that happens behind closed doors, we know immediately about it because it was promptly leaked. The former ambassador to Ukraine testified behind closed doors. I wish these were on television. We're paying for these hearings that you, the public, can't see. Thankfully, since none of the members of the House Intelligence Committee nor their staff cares that these are supposed to be private, we can tell you exactly what happened. Ambassador Yovanovitch delivered a scathing indictment of the Trump administration's conduct of foreign policy, warning that private influence and personal gain have usurped diplomats' judgment, threatening to undermine the nation's interests and drive talented professionals out of public service. She said that the Deputy Secretary of State told her this spring she had done nothing wrong and that this was not like other situations where he had, meaning the president, recalled ambassadors for cause. Does this strengthen the case for impeachment, Rich Valdes?
Well, I'm going to say I really don't think so. I don't think there's much of a case for impeachment as there is right now, which is why Pelosi hasn't gone for a vote. Once she does, then we can talk. But until then, I think this is, again, another situation of seeing a New Yorker, a businessman, somebody who will frankly say things the way he thinks they are. Do me a favor. Rosie O'Donnell is all of these things that he's known for saying. He's a very brash individual, and they're not used to that in Washington.
Walker, what do you think?
I think you should impeach him immediately.
What a surprise.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, I'm sorry, but a sitting president asked a foreign government to look into one of his political rivals. That's insane. Like, are you kidding? Like, if this had been Obama, the right would be having conniption fits in the streets, and they would be right to do so.
As U.S. history teaches us, FDR did this with the IRS over and over and over. So did Kennedy. I don't see how, and they actually used it with retribution towards people. Trump simply asked about a case that was ongoing.
Trump asked a foreign government to look into his political rival. What?
Trump's political rivals, whoever's going to win the Democratic primary.
And
right now, there's about a dozen.
Clearly, he thinks that that's Biden. That is crazy.
I don't see the craziness.
That's an impeachable offense.
Well, so you also had a problem when President Obama and the IRS, under his domain, was investigating right-aligned political groups, right?
So it's interesting.
You did, right?
Well, yes and no. So they were investigating right-aligned groups. They were also investigating liberal-aligned groups. In fact, there were more liberal-aligned groups that were under investigation than right-aligned groups. See, these narratives.
So you had a problem with all that.
These narratives get. Well, I didn't have a problem with it in the sense that we should be monitoring these groups' spending. They shouldn't. First of all, let's just take a step back. Nonprofits should not be able to engage in the political process.
You get no argument from me there.
And nonprofits should not be in the political process at all. And right now, as the law exists, there are loopholes that allow them to do that. Those loopholes should be closed. And technically, the letter of the law is that they're not allowed. But we should be monitoring these groups because they are blatantly political.
All right. Well, let me ask you one final topic.
It's not the same thing, though.
All right.
As the
fair
president,
enough. Fair enough.
Asking a foreign.
You know what?
government.
In the bottom line, whenever you have a process that's dominated by politicians, which is what impeachment is, it's always going to be motivated by politics, not any sort of legal standard. Let me ask you guys about China. Fitbit announced yesterday that they are leaving China. They've had enough of these tariffs. They're leaving China, and I'm wondering, Rich Valdes, does this show that the president's tariff strategy, the so-called trade war, might actually be working?
Well, I mean, of course it points to that it's working. I mean, that's what it's intended to do. I often make the analogy, and it's a gruesome one, so bear with me. But if we get into a fight on the street, I can choose to pick up a brick and beat your face in, or I can use my fist. If I use my fist, I'm going to obtain some of that beating. And that's what happens when you have a tariff strategy. You take some of that hit as well.
What are your thoughts on the trade war generally and where we're headed with China specifically?
Look, I think ultimately any president that is going to implement a more protectionist trade policy would be facing some of the same criticisms that Trump is. So I recognize that on the one hand. On the other, it is very true that there are people who are feeling it more than others, particularly farmers, and that's not great. So I'm sort of I don't have a firm one way or another on it, because on the one hand I do think that we need to be more protectionist in our trade policy, but on the other hand I think that I don't really trust how this president conducts his foreign policy overall, and whether or not that's we can point to individual companies leaving China or whatnot. I don't think we're going to really know the full impact of this change
Rich, we'll
in
give you
trade
the last
policy
word.
for a long time.
I think a good measure of protectionism is good in certain areas, but this is not something that we can ideally lean on the government to police. The free market has to be allowed to be free so that people can conduct their business free from these restrictions that ultimately hamper a free market economy.
All right. This was a particularly strong mix-it-up. Thank you both for coming in. Walker, thank you for sticking around. When we return, Bill Marco will tell you how to plan for your estate. You're not sure how to make heads or tails of your personal finances? Well, Bill Marco of Wealth Management Strategies will be here. Marco Wealth Management Strategies will be here. And I hope you will too. You're watching Liquid Lunch on NEWSMAX TV.